This liner. So you guys see me struggle with that. I forgot to take out the wheel well liner. You definitely want to do that. It makes it a little easier. You've got a 7mm here, a 7mm here, one 7mm underneath there. Then there's a push pin on the underside, and these are both 10mm, and I think that's it. And that clears more room for up top there. So the rear struts are FCS auto, even though they shipped them in a different box. But the front ones, you can see FCS auto. Here's the part number, is off of here. It's 332304. And that bottom number, if you need it, is 4821023. And notice that they are marked left and right. The difference is going to be on the mounting. So actually, I might have just gotten lucky. I got the top in, so I'm gonna put a couple bolts on the top real quick, and then I'll come back. Okay, so this time is going a lot better than it did last time. So I had to bring that up a little bit on my jack, but I got the 3 nuts started, not all the way down, just started. And then we'll see if we can work this bottom in. I think this is gonna give me a struggle, but we'll see. Right now I just have it resting on the knuckle, and that gave me the force needed to push it up there. No lying, this is going way easier than I did the first time I tried, because the first time I tried, no matter what I did, I could not get the top up. So far we're doing really good. Now I want to release this jack and watch this sensor down here, because these tabs are a lot longer than the original. once I get that in, just kind of want to work that back if you can. Get this bottom one in first, that'll help. Okay. And then somehow we gotta push that back to get that top one in there. I think I'm gonna try go on the back side of this bracket right here and see if that'll give me some force. Alright, that seemed to work. Okay. So what I did there was use the nuts to drive the bolts in, and then I backed them off just a little bit so I can come back and torque them to proper specs. Okay, so before I move on to the other side, you want to leave the sway bar and all that disconnected for now. My client wants to do the brake pads, so we're going to go ahead and do the brake pads. Here's the rear brake pad part number if you need them. And this kit did not come with hardware, so I took a wire brush, cleaned up the hardware real good. We'll reuse it. And then you want to grease your pads. I grease the tabs just a little bit, real light coating of grease. Don't get it on the pad part at all, but grease both top and bottom pads. And then I do a very thin layer of grease on the outer pad. And then this warning tab, you want this on the top, on the back. Wipe off the old grease and put on new grease on your new side pins. The side pin with the rubber piece, the little vibration dampener, that's going to go on the top. You guys may have not noticed, but when I took this caliper off, I actually compressed it just by pulling it forward. These rear calipers are really easy to compress. If you didn't do that, you want to compress the caliper, of course. I'll show you how to do that on the other side. But this is where you want to be at this point in time on this side. We'll go ahead and put this mount up right now. But again, leave the sway bar disconnected. Don't tighten the top nuts until the car is down on the ground. And now with the lift on there too, make sure you got some play here. You don't want that stretching too hard, so I think that's gonna be all right. Might actually bend this down a little bit just to give it a little bit more play, because when you're hitting bumps and stuff, you really don't want that to tighten up. So I'm just gonna take a pry bar and we're gonna kind of push that down just a little bit. Just bend it just a touch, and that'll give it enough play. See, that's a big difference in just that little tiny bend. So that should do the trick. You could also go ahead and put your fender liner up at this point in time, but I'm gonna wait on that and just go ahead and go over to the next side. So like I said, on the other side, you can really just pull on this caliper basically and it'll compress itself. But if you're not comfortable with that, I'll show you how to compress it if you're doing the brakes. Otherwise you don't need to worry about it. But this is a caliper compressor tool. I'll have it listed in the descriptions. And that works too. I just went ahead and hung that this time so there's no issues. Again, we won't tighten these until we're done and have the vehicle back on the ground. Now, if you had a friend, setting this in would be a little bit easier because you could have them ready at the trunk to put these top nuts on. But yeah, just set it in there and figure out a way to balance it so you can get the top nuts started. But this is where I had a problem last time, is I couldn't get the thing to go up there. Oh, I forgot to take the liner off again. Don't forget to take the liner off. These get heavy too, the longer you have to hold them. You really got to clear out as much room on the bottom as you can to be able to get the top started. Try from up top. Once you get the top started, just kind of use it to set here, and then use your jack to kind of lift it up a little bit. And then just get those top nuts started. Jack. We'll try this again. So I'm just using the caliper bracket and the back of the knuckle here. Just kind of pushing and forcing on that. Should do the trick. I did on the other side, so we'll try that. A little harder on this side though. The angle's different. Okay, and then like last time, I'll work these down until it pinches these bolts, because these bolts are notched. So, and then I'll back the nuts off just a little bit so I can torque them. We'll go ahead and do the same thing with the brakes if you're doing the brakes. I'm going to clean up the hardware. I'll re-grease the side pins. Okay, got the hardware all cleaned up. Again, the warning tab goes on top and the back. The rubber dampener goes on top. Go ahead and see that I don't have all that much to it, so just like we did on the other one, go ahead and bend this down just a touch. much bigger for you. Okay. Repeat that on the other side, and then we'll work on the sway bar. All right, for the sway bar links, just gonna move everything back and kind of work it into position. We're gonna do that on both sides. And then I like to get the sway bar links just started for now, so they're holding it in position. Do that on both sides, and that gives you a position a little easier for the bushings. Once you got those positioned, you're going to take your bracket and put the top in that little slot right there, and then the rest just kind of pulls right over. Usually. There we go. And then with your nut and bolt, you're going to put this in so it's on the bottom, so it'll lock up against the frame. Same on the other side. Now you can do the sway bar links. Repeat that on the other side. Now you're gonna look at this and you're gonna think, well, there's no clearance there between the sway bar and the strut, and that's gonna look the same on both sides. Keep in mind that the vehicle is up off the ground right now, so the suspension is at its very lowest. So when you put the vehicle back down, it's gonna raise all that up, and it'll give a little clearance between the sway bar and the strut. I'll show you when we get completely done, but don't worry about that for right now. So at this point in time, you should be done in the rear, except for the 3 bolts on the top here, and the 3 nuts, excuse me, not bolts, the 3 nuts on the top here. Wait until the vehicle is on the ground before you tighten those up. And then you've also got these caps. You could probably put these caps in now. It might be a little bit easier than trying to do it after everything's torqued down and tightened. So, because right now you've got a little bit of play in between the strut and the body, so probably a good idea to put them in now. Alright, so we're at the halfway mark here, getting ready to start on the front. If you are doing the brakes, this is a good time to check your brake fluid, check the level on it, make sure you take some out if you need to, because you got to leave room for compressing these front calipers. It's going to be interesting to see how the front's going to go. I'm just going to remove the caliper and hang it to the side, and then hopefully it'll just be these 2 bolts, but getting the new one in I think is going to be rather difficult. We might end up taking off the CV shaft nut just to give the knuckles some play, so we're not pulling on the shaft. And at this point in time, you should have 2 of the top nuts removed and 1 just on there holding it in place. Same on the other side, as I showed at the beginning of the video. The one with the rubber goes on top again. And this one, the front ones you won't be able to compress just by squeezing on them like you did on the front or on the rear. The rear ones are a lot easier, but the front one you'll definitely need to have some kind of compressor tool. Actually, this is going to be too small. Hang on. And by doing it this way, we're not opening any bleeders, so we're not introducing any air into the system. So we won't need to do a brake bleed. I'm just gonna go ahead and hang this off to the side here. And that should be all right there. Just make sure it's not tight on these points. So I'm going to attempt this just by going straight at the strut. We'll see if I need to do anything special after that. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take the axle nut off. We don't want that axle shaft to pull forward because it could tear apart the back of the axle inside the boot there. So let's go ahead and take this off just to be on the safe side. And we'll get that loosened up so the knuckle will move on it. Just make sure that's loose. If it's not loose, you can take your chisel and just knock it loose. That'll allow that axle to slide inside there rather than pulling on the back side of it. So you're just gonna knock that strut back, gives us some sliding room. I think I'm gonna have a really hard time getting the new struts in there. Really isn't much play at all to this, and it really might be easier for us to go ahead and disconnect the outer tie rod too, because when we go to put the new strut in, we're going to want more control of this knuckle. So we'll probably go ahead and disconnect this outer tie rod too, but for now we'll just pull this strut out. So you're going to lift up on it and pull that nut off the top that's holding it in place, and then just slip it out. And I'm going to go ahead and pull off this outer tie rod so when I put the new strut in, I've got more play on this, because that new strut is 3 inches longer, so it's going to give me a problem. I don't know if you saw that, but only hit the knuckle. You don't want to hit the tie rod. You don't want to hit the bottom of it. Just if you do hit the bottom of it, tap it to see if it's loose. But you only want to strike the knuckle right here. And as you can see with the tie rod loose, it gives us a lot more play with all of this. So hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier. The hardest thing is going to be getting this down on that extra 3 inches. So we'll see how it goes. And these are also right and left specific. Same part number. Now keep in mind, the longer you try to hold these up, the heavier they get on your arms. So if you have a friend, it's really good to have them ready with a nut. So once you get those in, he can get right on the top, he or she. Or what I like to do is just, I'll keep one of these like pinched in my lips. That way when I get the top up, I'll be able to have real easy access to it and pop it on. So so I got the nut started. Now like I said, this one's a lot lower than the other one was, so I think the hardest part I'm gonna have is getting this pushed down and getting these bolts started. But I'll have to figure out how to do this. Might take me a few tries. I might actually end up having to lower the control arm even too. That's not even close at this point in time. So maybe taking the sway bar off. I'm gonna basically sit on this bar for a minute here, see if I can get it low enough to get one of the lower bolts in. That doesn't seem to be happening. Fall off of this thing. Okay, so I've almost got the bottom in. Okay, that's gonna help. It's gonna be really difficult to get this pushed back in, but at this point in time, we're where we want to be. Now we just gotta get that pushed back in and get the other bolts started. Let me figure out how I'm gonna do this first, because I don't have anywhere really to pry like I did on the rear. Almost get that. That's rough. All right, let me see. I think the axle was stopping me that time. Yeah. So make sure you got your axle to where it slides easy. It makes it a lot easier. Okay, There we go. And then just like on the rear, I'm going to use the nuts to tighten these bolts up, but then I'll loosen up a little bit so we can torque them properly. But you just watch the head of the nut, or the head of the bolt, until it's flush, and you can see the space here. There's a little gap here that will tighten up. Let me get torque specs for this stuff real quick. Alright, same thing if you're doing the brake pads up front here. You're going to want the warning tab on the top of the back. This one even tells you left hand enter. So the warning tab goes on the top and the back. Make sure you clean up your hardware if you're reusing it. I did clean this the best I can, but it's still kind of dirty, kind of a little bit rusty, which I'll let my client know about. But boy, I hope I got the right pads here. Hang on. Okay. Alright, so yeah, warning tab goes on the top and the back. For some reason I can't get that lined up. There we go. Okay, and then same thing with your side pins. Make sure you clean them off and re-grease them. The one with the rubber is going to go on the top. Some of you might ask why I don't torque the caliper side pins. Most caliper side pins are only about 40-foot torque, but if you give it a few, you can actually feel where it used to be locked in. So that's what I do. I've never had a problem with it. Been doing it basically all my life and it works great. So, but if you did want to torque them, they're usually about 40 foot-pounds. Alright, so the front should be done except for the top nuts. Just go ahead and leave these loose until you get the vehicle down on the ground, and then we'll torque all the top nuts. Alright, so this last side is going to be a little bit harder for me to video. As you can see, I really don't have much room to work with, but I'll do the best I can for you guys. Just repeat the process that we just did on the other side. Alright, let's get all the wheels back on. We'll set it down and do all the top nuts. Alright, so now you're going to go through and torque all the top nuts. I started in the back, but it's going to be really hard to torque these ones because the only ones, you're only really going to be able to get a torque wrench on this one. And they're only 33 foot-pounds, which really isn't that much, so get a feel for how tight it is on this one. And then follow up with the other two with a wrench. That's the best way to do it because you're not going to fit a torque wrench on the other two, especially with the other one being way in the back there. Okay, once you got all those set in, go ahead and put your carpet back up. And you see that hole there? Just lift it over the top of that bolt there. Same thing on this side. I forgot to show how to take these off, but that's how you do it. And get that little hole over the top of that nut, or bolt, excuse me. There we go. There. This one was kind of folded up to begin with, but You get the picture.